Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of June 27th. And now we're going to have a guest who's been on the show before, Torrence Gardner. He's a co-founder of Protect Rogers Park. And he was on the show early in the year when all this horrendous dealing with immigrants began. And we talked about Protect Rogers Park, which was founded a few years back. We're going to catch up and see what we know or we can learn about ICE and immigration status for people here in Chicago. So good day to you, Torrence, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. Always a pleasure speaking with you all.
So give us a little brief rundown of how Protect Rogers Park got started and what were the issues then and what are the issues now?
Yeah, so in 2016, when Trump's first term, we formed very quickly. We saw all of our neighbors who were undocumented, very fearful of their lives. People quickly forget how long ago that was, but this is a second iteration. And we formed a hotline number and formed a volunteer support group very quickly while he was basically in his second month in office in 2016. We expanded a very large network, about 300 to 400 people, held trainings, taught people how to verify, how to contact support networks like the legal assistance networks that were out there at that time, as well as how to work with different stakeholders like parents, principals, and other stakeholders in our communities to form a network to best support each other in all aspects.
What's your sense about the role of ICE and their activity in Chicago and in Illinois in a broader way?
Yeah, clearly things have escalated. Let's just be frank about it, right? So ICE was formed in 2003. And then from 2003, it's ICE, each president, regardless of party, has funded ICE. They were formed, from my understanding, by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It was established as part of the Department of Homeland Security. And again, they've been seeing their funding steadily move up. I know they're requesting more money with this big, beautiful bill. And with that escalation means more arrests, means more folks being detained for all types of reasons, means more personnel moving into potentially our communities in a more direct way that we are starting to see more and more. I will call out, Chicago's had a lot of sightings, but they are definitely looking at the suburbs. We know for a fact Elgin and other places in like the northwest suburbs are being targeted because they have less organizational infrastructure like we have throughout Chicago's neighborhoods. So that's one thing folks need to be aware of who live out in those suburban communities.
Well, that's interesting to hear that not as much in Chicago, but just before everything broke loose in Los Angeles, and we still have National Guard there under the control of the president, not the governor. We have a battalion or whatever of Marines that are there. There had been an incident in Chicago where ICE people went to I don't know if it was a federal building or it was someplace where people were probably having hearings and something came down. Can you give us a little report on that? And is that typical or is that unique?
So if you refer to the federal agents that detained at least like 10 people who were told to check into a monitoring program in the South Loop.
Right. That's what it was after.
Yeah. So that was, pretty much it sounded like a third party sent a message out to folks who were told to check in, follow the legal process. They responded to what they were told to do via some third party. I'm not aware of which third party that was at this time or who's being the third parties in connection with ICE, but they were reported to go to the office building at 2245 South Michigan. And basically that's when everyone saw what happened. They detained these folks. One person, I believe from OCAD, Organizing Communities Against Deportation, was taken as well. And then that's when the aldermen and a bunch of community activists, our org and other orgs and a bunch of orgs came down to protest directly and stop what was happening there.
Have there been any dramatic rescue, so to speak, when ICE people were attempting to arrest people? Have we seen anyone get free or run away or or are they pretty much ICE is dominant in these little encounters?
From my understanding, ICE is pretty dominant. There are definitely close calls where an alert could go out and folks are told to basically hide or go to another building. Those are hard to see how many times that has occurred, but from reports that I know and connect communications I'm aware of, there have been opportunities for folks that have gotten away from being taken. I can't tell you how many, but it definitely has occurred based on the communication systems that are in place region-wide that is being currently further built out. It is beautiful to see, Michael, that other even suburban communities are stepping up that normally have not in past years because they are starting to get targeted more and more. And that's where the fight is growing more, is because they're not as organized. They're trying to get more organized.
Well, it was really interesting to hear about the suburbs and people stepping up. I'm wondering, who are these ICE people? Do we have any idea? I mean, are they the Proud Boys? Are they people who were involved in insurrection, at the end of Trump's last term? What do we know about them? Are they ex-cons?
It's hard to say because they come with face coverings, right? So first off, they already blocked their identity. What we can know for sure is they're made up of four main investigators. So there's the Homeland Security investigation folks. There's the enforcement and removal operations folks. There's another kind of group of people called management administration. Then they include all these other special agents and kind of deportation officers that no one really understands what their background really is. And again, it makes it very difficult when their face is covered and you're being taken away by someone, and people are watching people being taken by people you don't even know what their face even looks like. So it's hard to fully say until more investigations happen. There have been obviously folks who feel like these are folks who are part of other groups. How verifiable that is still to be determined fully, I believe.
They're busting people apparently without warrants. I mean, is there any legal any legal things we can do to slow them down, or are they just, when they go in and after someone, they got a whole bunch of people and they grab them? Like we saw the father of those 3 Marines on TV. One of them had been a Marine. 2 are in the Marines. Their dad was doing yard work in a shopping center. And these guys, there was probably 10, 15 of them, and they were beating the guy. And I'm just
yeah. No, it's why we preach know your rights, Michael. It's why we know your rights thing is so critical. If ICE agents stop you, you have the right to remain silent. You can ask, am I free to go? ICE cannot search you without consent. If an agent tries to search your belongings, you say clearly, I do not consent to this search. If they come to your house, do not open the door. Ask ICE to slide the warrant under the door if you have to. You have the right to remain silent. So these are all know your rights things we preach, Protect RP and other orgs are preaching. That's the biggest thing people have to understand and keep being notified about.
Show me your ID? Do you have a warrant? I have a right to remain silent. Does that work? I mean, I keep seeing these things where people are yelling that out and they're still just grabbing people without identifying themselves. And I'm not sure how those things play out in court or if there's even any court stuff involved.
So if that occurs, which of course they do ignore it all the time, there's a group called the National Lawyers Guild Chicago.
Right on, long-time activists.
Yeah, they're the biggest partner in supporting people who've been unlawfully taken and arrested, especially in those protests and things of that nature. But everyone is overrun. A lot of the lawyer advocacy agencies are overrun at this point. But that is the only approach that we are aware of at this current time is the NLG hotline.
We've seen on the TV where Democratic politicians have gone to these privatized ICE incarceration facilities. And, have really challenged them to wanting to go in to inspect. And we know that there's a congresswoman in New Jersey who was indicted around that. We also saw on the news Chuy Garcia, Congressman Garcia, and some other people going to a facility here in Illinois and making that demand that they get to see what's going on inside. We heard on that case of the father of those 3 Marines. He's been in jail for a number of days, very little water, very little food, no clean clothes, 1 toilet for 70 people in a small cell. What do you know about when Chuy and those people went to that facility, and in general, if anyone's able to get beyond this privatized incarceration?
Yeah, no, it's very concerning and alarming that our own representatives that we elect aren't being permitted into these buildings. It definitely speaks to the scariness of the times we live in. I'm not sure how we get beyond that. I've never seen that before. I don't think any of us have ever seen our own representatives not being allowed in a federal building to just see what's going on. So I think we're in unprecedented times, and I think we have to keep supporting each other at the community level, because clearly our representatives are also being targeted. And if they're being targeted, we're being targeted especially. So we're doing what we do and making sure that we can do what we can to protect each other as best as possible. Yeah.
Well, you did point out that there's more activity by ICE in the suburbs where there's less resistance, but evolving resistance. But I really would love to hear if there's anything about happened here in Rogers Park. I mean, I saw one warning that ICE was on campus at Loyola, and then I'm not sure if that was true or not.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when people up on the L platform being, afraid of who they see and they think ICE is there. What actually has happened in the 49th Ward that you know of, or anywhere close to here?
Yeah, so we have an ICE Watch signal thread that we track consistently with a lot of people on that thread. What I can tell you is we only have, at this point, 1 confirmed ICE one. That was at one particular house, probably back in January, if I recall correctly. The rest, we've had mostly false alarms, but we have people check it right away. We trained people to verify. We had a recent direct action training this past weekend at Living Water Community Church, where we're teaching people how to be better verifiers. If you get in conflict with ICE, what to do to protect yourself and things of that nature. So we only have had 1, I could say, in Rogers Park. Like I said, nearby, there were big actions that occurred from ICE, more in Albany Park, as of recently, I would say. But there's groups out there who've been forming and protecting themselves as well.
I heard somewhere that the Chicago police, who, some people have feared that they would be in cooperation with ICE, but we are a sanctuary city and we have certain regulations that the police are supposed to follow. What has been the relationship between the Chicago police and ICE's activities on the street, et cetera?
From what I know and what I've seen, it's been vague lately. That's why I'm glad Alderman Andre Vasquez called for investigations to figure out what is really going on. It's unclear. We're being told, based on people I know who had a meeting with the mayor's office, and based on what they're being told by CPD from that meeting with the mayor, that they were there at the recent protests in the South Loop that we previously mentioned on this call, that they were there to protect a CPD officer. And in other instances, they were just there to protect what's going on, making sure things just don't bubble over as they generally do in any protest setting. But again, that's being further investigated to see how accurate that is truly.
Well, I hope they're not involved. I mean, the Chicago police have learned a lot since 1968 about dealing with crowds. And we have had some, more progressive mayors. And so it's not like the old days, but probably has a ways to go. What do you recommend that people in general know and do, and how people get involved and sign up with you so that they can know how they can participate and help out?
Yeah, definitely recommend they email us at protectrp626@gmail.com. They can get plugged in from our monthly updates we give. And then we have kind of a Protect RP signal communications channel that folks can tap into by connecting with us via that email. And then they'd be plugged in via their phone, and they would get messages and alerts from their phone with the Signal app.
What's your, if you were a betting guy, what would you think about the future of ICE and where this all goes? Do you see the president being able to continue to, with all this bluster about it? Do you see resistance on the national front increasing? Any hope for the courts? Once in a while we get a decision from the court and the Supreme Court. We go, oh, wow, that's a change. But then we get decisions that are terrible. What's your kind of futuristic outlook about our situation?
I definitely see, since they're asking for ICE is asking for an increase of funding in the big, beautiful bill. If that passes, that is a very, very bad sign for everyone. They're going to increase their capacity and their efforts tenfold if they get that money. They're asking for billions of dollars of increase in their funds, which to me will only lead to more arrests and more of what we're seeing now at a maybe higher clip. I do predict resistance will start to flow, like I started saying, in the suburbs. And the goal is to see if that resistance stays strong and grows stronger from folks who normally aren't part of the fights like in the past. I think if that happens, then we'll be at a conflict inflection point. And where that goes, I don't know, but it's going to be a scary time because inflection points are dangerous, but it may inevitably lead to that part where more folks start to resist that normally have not.
Torrence Gardner, what's your sense of the privatization with ICE? We know that some of the prison facilities that they have are privatized. We even know that states are being involved, like Florida's building alligator jail, in the middle of the swamp. But what's your sense about how much of this privatization is going to go on and continue to go on?
I think it's going to go on because that's just the American way, right? Like privatization is the hallmark of the system we've been living in since almost decades at this point. So I think that's just the way it's always going to be.
Well, let's hope there's more and more resistance. And I really want to thank you for coming on one more time. Give us either a website and an email where people can contact you and members of Protect RP and be involved in case we need people to step up in case of emergencies when our neighbors are being snatched and grabbed.
Yeah, anyone who wants to connect with Protect Rogers Park, email protectrp626@gmail.com. Again, that's protectrp626@gmail.com.
Torrence Gardner, thanks a lot. I'll see you in the neighborhood.
All right, see you later.
Right on, brother. Thank you. And everyone else, you're listening to Live from the Heartland for the week of June 27th, and we're going to take a short musical break, and we're going to continue to talk about ICE a little bit, the LA Dodgers, and they have somehow kept ICE out of their parking lot. Hopefully that will continue, and we'll hear more in just a moment. Be right back with more Live from the Heartland.